Hi, I'm Clayton. I live here by myself in Greensboro, North Carolina, and I have kind of a heart problem. Not bad, but kind of bad. So I have to make sure I prepare the proper heart-healthy meals for myself. Now, I like meatloaf, love meatloaf, relish meatloaf. Shouldn't have meatloaf, but I will continue to eat meatloaf. So I'm going to show you how to make my favorite heart-healthy cottage meatloaf. Now this is the basic ingredients we'll be using to prepare our cottage meatloaf, along with the loaf pan and all the other ingredients. In fact, let me show you what all the ingredients and the measurements are going to be. Now the first thing we start using is we're going to use a pound and a half of ground beef. Now normally we use not just a pound and a half of ground beef. We use a pound of ground beef and a half a pound of ground turkey. But I just can't see merging turkey and beef together. No, I can't do it. No. So I'm going to use the full pound and a half of 93% ground beef, less fat and better protein. 93% ground beef. Then we first add a quarter cup of chopped onions. You know, a little secret about chopped onions. It's an easy secret. You boil it first. It gets rid of the smell. I learned that when I was over in the Netherlands. My wife was in the Army, and we were over stationed in the Netherlands, and I worked at this pizza place. And they boil the onions first. I hate messing with onions because, you know, it gives you teary eye. But if you boil it first, you get less tears. So I like that part. Then you add about 3/4 cups of soft breadcrumbs. You add 2 large eggs. Some people use egg whites, and I should be using egg whites also, but I use the whole thing. Now we use a 3/4 cup of ketchup. But we're only going to use about a half a cup of the ketchup right now. We're going to save the other last quarter cup for our sauce. We're going to be mixing that also. And I'll show you how to do that. But right now we're going to just use the 3/4 cup. Or just the half, I'm sorry, we're just going to use half of the a cup of ketchup. Now we pour in 1/3 of a cup. You could use either tomato juice, tomato sauce. I choose to use tomato sauce simply because I went to the grocery store and just couldn't find out where the tomato juice was. I'm not a tomato juice fan. So I'm just using tomato sauce. Now we're putting in, we use 2½ teaspoons of prepared mustard. But I'm just going to put 2 teaspoons of prepared mustard in. Use the other half for later. Then we put in other spices. We use a half a teaspoon of salt. Nah, I don't use salt. I use salt, but I don't use it to mix in with my food. Then I add a little bit of pepper, about an eighth of a teaspoon of pepper. Now after I've done all of that, that's when I start mixing all of this together, all the mixtures together. So let's get to work. Wait a minute. Now I just took 1.5 pounds of ground beef that I thawed out cold like a son of a gun. Then I thawed it out, put it back in the refrigerator until it was time to do my mixtures. So in there is cold ground beef. Have you ever, and you probably have mixed ground beef together in a meatloaf or with your hands, and then your fingers are frozen solid. Me, I take a break. So that's when I just leave this like it is and go watch Judge Judy. Okay? Okay, now we're going to start mixing this stuff up now that it's kind of warmed up a little. As much as I like to make meatloaf, this is the nastiest part, is mixing this. I feel like I'm trying, well, I'm not going to tell you what I feel like, but you just keep on mixing it and mixing it and mixing it and mixing it and mixing it. Now, first of all, what I'm going to do, I like to put Reynolds wrap along my loaf pan because I don't care what I do, it's going to stick and look nasty. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the Crisco granola oil and I'm going to spray. So to help prevent it from sticking. And then I'm going to start mixing my meatloaf. Not mixing it, but just putting in the pan. Now some people have their ways, I have my way. My way is not pretty. Because now I'm hungry. I don't know how long it's been, but ever since I was a little kid, I love meatloaf. When I was in the hospital, actually when I got out of the hospital, and they gave me a strict diet, and I was on that diet except for the fact I wanted meatloaf. Now my wife tried to make meatloaf for a person with the heart that I had. And by the way, I suffered heart failure. And she tried to make it with low sodium, and it was nasty. But still I stuck to it. But when I got better and healthier, I went home to Mom and said, Mom, can I have some meatloaf? And she made me my kind of meatloaf. Less salt, but the meatloaf I grew up on. Okay, now that's in there. That's kind of nice. And that's ready. Now that I've got my stove heated up, I'll open up my stove, pull it out, place my meatloaf in there, close it, wait for 35 to 45 minutes. You know, I just thought about something. I like my food to be well done. 35, 45 minutes, I'll make it an hour. Yeah, an hour's good enough. That gives me enough time to watch Judge Mathis. So I'll be right back after Judge Mathis. Well, there it is. My cottage meatloaf. Doesn't look too pretty, but I'm sure all you want are the ingredients. You can make it prettier yourself. So it's all mine, and I'm going to eat it.